But the tide of war turned when they encountered a rogue Jaeger. It had broken away from the others and was rampaging through the city. The brothers realized that inside the robot was a kaiju, a mind-bending twist that turned their enemy into their ally. Together, they fought off Knifehead and saved the city. But in the ensuing battle, Raleigh's Jaeger was critically damaged and his brother was presumed dead. Devastated but determined, Raleigh volunteered for a suicide mission to destroy the remaining kaiju. He and his new partner, a woman named Chuck, launched into the fray. The other Jaegers joined in, and together they seemed unstoppable. Then everything changed. Just as Raleigh was about to deliver the killing blow to Knifehead, a massive roar shook the sky. Rising from the depths was the largest kaiju humanity had ever seen. Its eyes burned with an eerie blue light, and it moved with a terrifying grace. Codenamed Otachi, it towered over the other kaiju, its skin shimmering with an otherworldly glow. As Otachi charged forward, the Jaegers scattered, each one trying to outmaneuver the behemoth, but no one could keep up with its speed or agility. It was too quick, too powerful. One by one, the Jaegers fell. Some were tossed aside like broken toys, others were ripped apart limb from limb. It was a massacre, and Raleigh and Chuck watched in horror as their fellow Jaegers were torn to pieces. But there was nothing they could do. Even combined, they weren't a match for the colossal monster. Then suddenly, Raleigh remembered something. There was a weakness in the kaiju's armor, a blind spot near its shoulder. If he could get close enough, he might be able to hit it. Raleigh knew what he had to do. He had to sacrifice himself. So, as Othaki reared back for the killing blow, Raleigh made his move. He and Chuck dove towards the colossal monster, their Jaeger streaking through the sky like a meteor. The other kaiju scattered, giving them room to maneuver. Now or never. Raleigh shouted, "For Charlie, for Newt, for Gypsy!" With a roar, Raleigh smashed his Jaeger into Otachi, ramming the colossal monster straight into the heart of the city. As the dust settled and the smoke cleared, the surviving kaiju looked on in stunned silence. Othaki lay in the wreckage, its armor dented and its eyes dim. But it was still alive. Raleigh had dealt it a mortal blow, but it would take time to finish it off. Time they didn't have. More kaiju were on their way. With a Herculean effort, Raleigh pulled himself and Chuck out of the wreckage just as another kaiju reared up to attack. It was a desperate gamble, but it paid off. Raleigh had bought humanity some time. As the other Jaegers regrouped and prepared to fight, Raleigh collapsed, mortally wounded but proud. He had done his duty. He had saved the world. Or had he? Because in the distance, on the horizon, another Jaeger was rising. And this one wasn't friendly, it was hunting. From the creators of Pacific Rim, this is the story of how it all began. This is the story of two Jaegers, recon reconciling with their past and uniting to save humanity from total annihilation. At first, they fought bravely. The Jaeger's plasma cannon tore through the creature's flesh, but Knifehead came back with terrifying strength. It ripped the Jaeger apart, pulled Yancey out, and devoured her alive. Raleigh, broken but still connected to the machine, fought on. With just one arm of the Jaeger left, he blasted Knifehead until it fell. Barely alive, Raleigh washed ashore. The locals found him, patched him up, and sent him on his way. For a while, the kaiju attacks grew less frequent, once a month, then every week. Humanity was winning. Most Jaegers were destroyed. Governments shut down the program and tried building massive coastal walls instead. But those crumbled in minutes. That's when Marshal Stacker Pentecost found Raleigh again. He convinced him to return for one last mission. Raleigh was paired with a new co-pilot, Mako Mori, a skilled fighter who had a tragic past. She lost her parents in a kaiju attack when she was just a child. Together, they reactivated one of the last standing Jaegers, Gypsy Danger. Meanwhile, scientist Newton Geisler made a dangerous discovery. By drifting with a kaiju brain, he uncovered their secret. They weren't just mindless monsters, they were bioengineered weapons controlled by an alien race from another dimension. These aliens had been trying to conquer Earth since the age of the dinosaurs, but only now, because of pollution and climate change, was the planet's atmosphere perfect for them. Mako, still haunted by childhood trauma of losing her family, struggled at first. But Raleigh's strength helped her regain control, and together, they prepared to face the deadliest battle yet. A battle against not just one kaiju, but an entire invasion, straight from the other side of the breach. The fate of the world rested in their hands. This is their story. Gypsy Danger soared through the skies, its powerful engines roaring as it engaged Otachi. The two titans clashed in midair, their weapons blazing. Raleigh and Mako, the brave pilots of Gypsy Danger, fought with precision and skill. But Otachi was a formidable opponent. Its acidic blood dripped from its mouth like lava, burning everything in its path. As the battle raged, Raleigh and Mako realized they needed a new strategy. Working together, they dodged Otachi's attacks and lured it into a trap. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, Gypsy Danger unleashed its ultimate weapon, the full force of its nuclear-powered plasma cannon. The blast hit Otachi, sending it crashing to the ground below. But the victory was short-lived. More kaiju appeared on the horizon, each more terrifying than the last. Gypsy Danger was outnumbered, and soon it became clear that the kaiju were just the beginning. From the portal emerged colossal machines of war, the very weapons used by the kaiju to destroy entire cities. Humanity's last hope was in grave danger. Trapped between the advancing robots and the relentless kaiju, Raleigh and Mako knew they had to act fast. Using their wits and courage, they led a desperate fight for survival. As the battle reached its climax, Raleigh and Mako faced a horrifying truth. The robots were not just machines, but possessed by sinister alien entities. These beings had infiltrated Earth's defenses, corrupting everything in their path. The stakes could not be higher, the fate of the world hung in the balance. Raleigh and Mako, along with the remaining Jaegers, stood as the last line of defense against the impending darkness. In a final act of heroism, Raleigh and Mako made the ultimate sacrifice. They confronted the leader of the alien invasion, putting everything on the line to save humanity. But at what cost? The outcome of the battle was uncertain. Would Raleigh and Mako's sacrifice be enough to defeat the darkness, or would the world succumb to the shadows? The final moments were tense, filled with danger and suspense. The confrontation between good and evil reached its peak, leaving the audience on the edge of their seats. Who would emerge victorious, and what would the world look like in the aftermath? The answers to these questions hung in the balance, waiting to be revealed in the heart-stopping conclusion of this epic tale. And so the legend of Gypsy Danger and the bravery of its pilots echoed through time, inspiring generations to come. But you have a choice. Will you watch as the world is consumed by darkness, or will you join the fight for freedom? The decision is yours. Choose wisely. Many times humanity had stood on the brink of extinction, but never before had it been this close. With each passing day, the kaiju grew stronger and more aggressive. And after suffering heavy losses, the governments of the world finally pulled the plug on the Jaeger program. But Raleigh and Mako believed there was still hope. With the help of Marshal Stacker, they managed to convince the others, and together they went to the abandoned Jaeger facility. Meanwhile, Newton made one last-ditch effort to drift with the scientists. He wanted to send one final message to the outside world. But what he heard in return shocked him. It wasn't static. Someone was transmitting a signal through the neural drift. At first, they couldn't decipher the transmissions, but later Newton and his partner were able to make sense of the words. The kaiju weren't acting on their own. They were biological weapons being controlled by an alien race. The aliens were highly intelligent, and their plan was simple. Use the kaiju to destroy the human race, and then claim Earth for themselves. But how could they control these enormous monsters? The answer was horrifying. The aliens had somehow managed to enter the minds of the kaiju and enslave their consciousnesses. That explained why they were becoming stronger. The aliens were feeding them energy through the neural drift. And the scariest part was that now the aliens could see into the minds of humans. They knew Earth was preparing to stop them. Soon, two powerful kaiju emerged from the ocean at the same time. They headed towards the two Jaegers that were guarding the coastline. One of them was controlled by Hercules, and the other by Chuck Hansen. Both pilots put up a valiant fight, but the monsters were too strong. In minutes, both Jaegers were destroyed, but there was still one more Jaeger in the fight, Gypsy Danger. While Raleigh and Mako were getting ready to enter the battlefield, one of the monsters unleashed an electromagnetic pulse. The move caught the pilots off guard, and the city was instantly plunged into darkness. The electrical grid was down, all communications were lost, and to top it all off, the city's water mains had ruptured. As the monster rampaged through the streets, people desperately ran for their lives. Suddenly, one of the buildings exploded. The monster had reached Newton's lab. It was searching for him. But just when it seemed all hope was lost, Gypsy Danger arrived. The crowd cheered as the two Jaegers engaged the monster in combat. For a moment, it seemed like the combined forces of Raleigh and Mako would be too much for the monster to handle. But that was just an illusion. The creature was bigger than they had anticipated. As the battle raged on, the monster began to gain the upper hand. It knocked Gypsy Danger to the ground and prepared for the final blow. But just then, Raleigh remembered something. Their Jaeger was nuclear-powered. Its systems were not dependent on electricity. Using the intercom, Raleigh told Mako to get ready. Then he activated the stealth mode. The monster was momentarily blinded by a flash of light. When it tried to attack again, it was too late. Gypsy Danger was already on the offensive. With a combination of punches and kicks, they managed to defeat the monster. But as they approached to deliver the final blow, something unexpected happened. The dead kaiju suddenly twitched. Everyone watched in horror as it gave birth to a small baby kaiju. The newborn immediately died, but the fact that the monsters were now evolving was a terrifying thought. Newton and his partner drifted again and finally managed to reach the most important piece of information. The breach at the bottom of the ocean wasn't a natural phenomenon. It had been designed so only a kaiju could pass through. If they wanted to stop the invasion, they would have to go to the source and destroy it. But how? The answer came when they analyzed the structure of the kaiju. It had a special cavity in its body that perfectly matched the nuclear warheads used by humans. It was like the monsters were made to carry nuclear payloads. If they could get a warhead inside a kaiju's body, they could destroy the breach from the inside out. Of course, doing so would also kill the kaiju and anyone who came into contact with it. But it was the only way to stop the invasion. Now, they just needed to figure out how to get the warhead inside a live kaiju. After defeating multiple kaiju, the aliens then sent their most dangerous creation, a Category 5 kaiju, the biggest one humanity had ever seen. The final battle began. Marshal Stacker, the grizzled veteran Jaeger pilot, knew that this was his last stand. With a heavy heart, he sacrificed himself, destroying one of the monsters. Now it was up to Raleigh and Mako to finish what Stacker started. They fought bravely, dodging the kaiju's powerful attacks and returning fire with everything they had. But it was clear that they couldn't defeat this monster on their own. As the battle raged on, Raleigh came up with a desperate plan. He knew that there was an ocean trench nearby where the breach to the other dimension was located. If they could drag the kaiju down into the trench, they might be able to seal the breach and cut off the enemy's reinforcements. But it was a risky move. If they got too close to the trench, the water pressure could crush Gypsy Danger and its pilots. Raleigh and Mako fought side by side, their Jaeger moving like a shark through the water, biting and clawing at the monster until it finally succumbed to their relentless assault. They dragged it down into the trench, but it wasn't over yet. The kaiju, even weakened, was still a formidable opponent and it lashed out with its full strength, trying to stop them from closing the breach. But Raleigh and Mako held their ground, determined to save humanity. With a final surge of adrenaline, they managed to push the giant creature through the breach and into the other dimension. But now they were trapped in the trench with no way out. The water pressure was crushing Gypsy Danger, and Raleigh knew that they didn't have much time left. In a last-ditch effort to save himself and Mako, Raleigh did something that no one had ever done before. He ejected from the Jaeger just as it reached the surface. As he watched Gypsy Danger implode behind him, he knew that he might not make it out alive. But he had to try. With a parachute deployed, he plummeted towards the ocean below, praying that he would be okay. Meanwhile, Mako, who had been thrown clear of the Jaeger earlier, was being pulled out of the water by a team of waiting ships. She had survived, but she was badly injured and unconscious. As the battle raged on, Raleigh managed to guide himself towards a small island, but he was badly injured and barely conscious. As the medics rushed to his side, he could hear the cheers of the crowd in the distance. People were celebrating, thinking that he and Mako had won the war. But Raleigh knew that the battle was far from over. He had to get back to the fight. With the help of the medics, Raleigh was patched up and he quickly got to work trying to repair Gypsy Danger. He knew that he couldn't let his friends down. With Mako still in critical condition, Raleigh had to do this for her. For humanity, he repaired Gypsy Danger as fast as he could and got into the cockpit. He knew that this was his last chance to save the day. With a deep breath, Raleigh took control of Gypsy Danger and charged into battle. He fought with everything he had, knowing that this was his last stand. But as the battle raged on, Raleigh began to lose hope. The kaiju were relentless, and it seemed like they would never stop coming. Just when he thought all was lost, he heard a familiar voice over the radio. It was Mako. She had survived her injuries and was back in the fight. Together, Raleigh and Mako fought side by side, their Jaeger moving like a dancer through the water, dodging and weaving, attacking and defending. And finally, just when the Jaegers were about to collapse, Raleigh and Mako managed to destroy the remaining kaiju. The breach was closed, and the alien invasion was over. Raleigh and Mako emerged from the wreckage of Gypsy Danger, battered but alive. They had won the war, but they knew that the fight was far from over. There was still so much to do, so much to rebuild. But as they stood there in the ruins of their Jaeger, they knew that they weren't alone. They had each other, and together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead.